let's take another look at one of the most brutal powerhouse units of Codex Necrons, and the interesting buffs and combos that we can now use with Skorpekh destroyers. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy focused 40k channel, where today we're talking Necrons, and I thought it might be fun to re-examine the Skorpekh destroyers, the really fun combat pattern of destroyers that came out in the Indomitus box. These guys were one of the poster childs for the new edition of Warhammer 40k. They've always been kind of okay in Necron armies, though not particularly standout, but now since the balanced data slate gave them the core keyword, I'd argue that they're now perhaps one of the scarier units in the Codex, and a really good linchpin to put several different buffs on, potentially making them very tough or very hitty indeed. Just briefly while we're on the subject, I thought I might just quickly mention the December giveaway on the channel. It does contain a few Skorpekh destroyers, and it's basically 3 copies of the Necron half of the Indomitus box. Each month I post out a few big model kits to people. The draw for this one will be done on 1st of December, so there's only a few days left, and as normal you can either sign up to support on Patreon for whatever amount, or enter via social media, subscribing to the YouTube channel, liking the Facebook page, and then entering the draw with a picture of your model on the Facebook post that appears on the 1st of each month. As normal, I'm going to keep on doing that. Maybe we might go for a couple of copies of Shadow Throne in January. In any case though, let's return to the Skorpeks. We'll start out with a look at their datasheet, then talk about the buffs and synergies that we can now use with them now they have the core keyword, some big damage and durability combos, and how I think about using them in-game. Skorpekh destroyers are of course an elite's choice for Codex Necrons. They're 35 points per model, and for that you do get a pretty reasonable stat line. They're 8-inch movement, weapon skill and ballistic skill 3, strength and toughness 5, 3 wounds, 3 attacks, leadership 10 and a 3+ save, and they do have all the normal Necron rules such as living metal, reanimation protocols and command protocols. It's really quite a nicely balanced stat line for a melee unit, reasonably fast, and as they're infantry that will allow them to move through things like ruined walls, good strength, toughness and attacks, a decent enough save, and living metal does have the potential to be handy on multi-wound models like this. I think most of the time it's going to be unlikely you're going to get anyone back from reanimation protocols unless someone tries to wipe out most of the squad in one go. War gear wise, most of the models are armed with hyperphase threshers, and for every 3 models in the unit, one is equipped with a hyperphase reaper blade instead, a bigger and more anti-tank type weapon. The threshers are basically good anti-everything combat in my opinion, strength user so strength 5, AP -3 and damage 2, and when they fight they get an additional attack, so they're usually going to be hitting with 4 attacks there. The reap blade is very nice as well, that puts them up to strength 7 base, a massive AP -4 and damage 3, so every wound that you get through with that thing, you're absolutely going to feel it. Potentially in game when you take casualties, you could think about killing off the models that are going to be least useful in that matchup. I'd say usually the threshers have less value than the reap blade, but say if you're facing loads of toughness 4 2-wound infantry, that might not necessarily be the case. We'll look at their damage output in a second, but otherwise they just have that one other special rule, the hardwired for destruction one that all destroyers get, allowing them to reroll hit rolls of 1 natively. Now they gain the core keyword, they're just a good all-round generalist, reasonably tough and fast, and packing a really big punch of high AP multi-damage attacks, meaning that they're going to be particularly good at killing elite infantry. I think it's worth looking at the Canoptic Plasmacyte's datasheet as well, seeing as it's a very tempting option for buffing the unit. It's basically a single model elite's choice unit that doesn't take up a slot if you have some Skorpekh destroyers nearby, costs just 15 points, and it's basically a 1-wound model that just floats alongside your destroyers, not really doing too much, though the opponent can't target it directly with ranged attacks, again if it is following your destroyers around. The reason for bringing this thing is its Infused Madness special rule, which allows you once per turn at the start of your charge or fight phase, you can select the Skorpekh destroyers and they gain +1 strength and +1 attack. That's really quite a massive damage boost. It might get them over the threshold for wounding on 3s against a bunch of targets, and the extra attacks are always nice. Generally it's quite a nice damage boost for the cost, but it does come with basically a 1 in 6 chance of killing one of your Skorpekh destroyers, which I think is going to be a big ouch every time that happens. Losing a 35-point model just before you're about to make a key charge could be very painful indeed. I'd say a Plasmacyte really isn't all that bad a pickup if you've got a unit that's 5 models or more. It does have the potential to make them massively more dangerous when they do make their charge, but I'd say it's maybe only marginally better than taking those points and putting them towards another unit of Skorpekh destroyers. I describe it as non-mandatory, but in the cases where the strength does make the difference, it could genuinely be the difference between swinging some combats. Besides the Plasmacyte then, let's take a look at the other buffs and synergies that we can now use with Skorpekh destroyers now they have core. First up, for command protocols, the Hungry Void seems like the one that is going to be most exciting. +1 strength on the first round of combat is going to be very nice for these, as is the extra AP, though I'd say that the strength is better than the AP due to the AP of these weapons already being quite good. I'd say if you do have a fair few Skorpeks, having the Hungry Void down for turn 2 or turn 3 is usually going to be a pretty reasonable option. Otherwise, the potentially early ones that could be useful are getting the cover that you can get first turn if you don't move, if your opponent happens to go first, or even just the +1 inch move to get them into position just a little bit better early on. Dynasties wise, I'd say perhaps the Novok and the custom dynasties are the ones that stand out the most. Novok gives you more reliable charges, better AP should you need it. There's the nice +1 attack stratagem, which could be a really easy way of getting more damage output on them, and the boosted Hungry Void protocol allow you to get both benefits. Rarely going to be a terrible choice for combat units. The custom dynasties too really aren't too bad. The tried and tested combo of objective secured and a pre-game move are going to be both things that Skorpeks are really going to like. Though I guess you could maybe take one of those and maybe combine it with something like the -1 toughness from Radwreathed. Again, that's going to make them so much easier to wound the enemy. Finally, out of the other dynasties, I'd say maybe Nephrek or Zarikon are some of the more interesting ones. For Nephrek, the invul save doesn't hurt, but perhaps more interestingly, if you are wanting to advance them turn 1, then those big 6-inch movements could actually be pretty handy for closing the distance. Zarikon gives you that free wound reroll, and also a bit of protection against mortal wounds, which are quite common these days in 40k, so it does make them tougher in a different way. Character-wise, there's now so many different options for making Skorpekh stronger. The standard Overlord's My Will Be Done is certainly no bad thing. +1 to hit, plus extra movement from Relentless March, both are nice. The regular Lord's a bit worse, as he only really does Relentless March for them, not the Lord's Will for the rerolls. They already have inbuilt rerolls to hit. The Skorpekh Lord gives his aura of reroll wound rolls, which I'd say most of the time might actually be less useful than the Overlord's +1 to hit. And Amrakir the Traveller is actually quite an interesting choice for them, as he can double dip with buffs on them, giving them both +1 to hit and also +1 attack as well. They're perhaps one of the prime targets for being restored by Illuminor Zeraz or a Technomancer too. If they take casualties but don't die, that's going to be quite a lot of points restored to the board just in one action. Zeraz could have a decent go at augmenting them as well, giving them either +1 strength or toughness, and hopefully not rolling the extra ballistic skill. They'll work nicely with the Silent King as well, with all his melee rerolls. His obeisance generators certainly won't hurt as well, making enemy units fight last. Chronomancers could give them a 5+ invul and reroll charges. The Hypermaterial Ablator from a Cryptek will give them cover, and you could get the reroll charges Warlord trait, again another way of helping guarantee that they get into the fight. Finally, being core, you could potentially combo them with a Canoptic Reanimator, though I don't think it's usually going to be worth it compared with using that on more easily resurrectable things like Immortals or Warriors. Overall, character-wise, there's really quite a lot to choose from here. I don't think that you want to go too overboard on the characters, maybe going for 1 or 2 at max. I'd say maybe my top picks at the moment are just the standard Overlord and the Technomancer. They both seem to give you really decent buffs for the points invested. Now they are core, they can also embark in Night Scythes where they couldn't before. If you wanted to go absolutely crazy with it, then you certainly could. You could potentially have 3 squads of 6 Skorpekh destroyers alongside 2 characters, all embarked in one scythe. I guess that could be a way of getting a serious amount of scary bodies up in the enemy's face turn 1, though if you are shot down with them inside it, you are likely to lose a whole load of points of models, just literally from the emergency disembarking from the transport. You could also potentially try and use the Prismatic Dimensional Breach stratagem to deliver a unit out of a scythe. That could get you near guaranteed charges. You just need to make sure that the Night Scythe survives turn 1, as you can't use the stratagem until turn 2. I suspect that generally people are going to want to start them on the board as opposed to using scythes like this, but it could be quite fun for a different take. Finally, we have stratagems, and the Skorpekh destroyers have 2 very good ones. I would say that the highest value one is Whirling Onslaught for 1 CP, and this one's a truly excellent defensive stratagem where you activate in a phase and it makes all of the attacks that target them -1 to wounds. It's pretty hilarious when you could have bolters wounding you on 6s, or even things like las cannons only wounding you on 4s at best. If you think that a big unit's likely to suffer a whole load of firepower, then this one seems like a really good CP to spend. Otherwise, for a bit more aggression, there's Disruption Fields. This one gives you +1 strength. I'd be particularly looking to spend that one if the raising from strength 5 to strength 6 is going to make a big deal for the Threshers. Say if your target does have toughness 6 or toughness 5 in particular. Quite a nice damage boost to turn on if you need it, but you can ignore it if you don't. Overall, I think it's really quite fun the amount of options these guys have now. I think perhaps the most interesting are either Novok or the custom dynasties, supported maybe by Technomancers or Overlords. and then making good use of those two stratagems in game if they need to. Next, I thought we'd just take a look at a couple of potential combos, just one interesting damage one and one durability one. Maybe you wouldn't want to put literally all of these things together every game, but I guess it gives you a bit of a theoretical maximum of what you might be able to do. Say for example, if we had a squad of 5 Skorpekh destroyers, 4 with threshers and 1 with the reap blades. In normal circumstances, with no combat dynasty or anything else going on, you kill around about 10 guardsmen, 9 space marines, 4 gravis marines, or do around 10 wounds to a toughness 7 vehicle. It is quite funny that they go through space marines almost as easily as guardsmen. The only difference is that space marines get a 6+ save against the threshers. To be honest, this isn't really too bad for 175 points worth of a unit, but it can get significantly better. Say for example, if we suit that up to 5 Skorpekh destroyers and 1 Plasmacyte, now for 190 points. They're a Novok Dynasty unit on the charge for easier charging and a bit of extra AP. They spend 1 command point for disruption fields for +1 strength if they need it, and 1 CP for +1 attack each. Then they just have the 1 special character buffing them, an Overlord with My Will Be Done to hit on 2s, and ideally, if you could do, it'd be nice to be in the Protocol of the Hungry Void, but I've not included it here as that's usually only going to happen on 1 turn. In any case, even without the Hungry Void in effect, we now go up to some pretty crazy numbers. The Threshers now all hitting at strength 7 and AP -4 with a crazy 6 attacks each, and the Reap Blade is up to strength 9, 5 attacks at AP -5. It all adds up to a pretty crazy 24 dead guardsmen, 19 dead space marines, 11 gravis marines murdered, or an absolutely spectacular 33 wounds to a standard toughness 7 vehicle with a 3+ armor save. I would bear in mind that it does risk killing a destroyer with this for the 1 in 6 chance for the Plasmacyte. Obviously, if that happens, these numbers are going to be a bit lower, and I would bear in mind that anything like invuls, transhuman physiology, or the -1 damage will certainly make this combo a fair bit less effective. Still though, when you're starting with this crazy amount of damage, it's still going to add up to quite a bit. Not too bad for 200 points of unit with 1 support character and a couple of CP. Next, here's just one potential durability combo, which I did feature back on the channel in the Necron core units update. Again, we've got a unit of 5, they're supported by a Technomancer, and the Technomancer's got the Hypermaterial Ablator. They spend 1 command point for Whirling Onslaught if they need to, and it makes their durability jump up massively. Against ranged attacks, they're now 3 wound toughness 5 critters, all with a 2+ save, and a pretty powerful -1 to wound debuff. Even not accounting for the slim chance of reanimation protocols, if you want to wipe out the whole squad, that's going to be 270 bolt rifle hits, 90 heavy bolter hits, 23 las cannon hits, or 12 dark lance hits. Basically, you need large amounts of anti-tank firepower to down this one cheapish unit. If you don't manage to wipe the whole squad, and to be honest I think it's kind of unlikely with those kind of numbers, the Technomancer will guarantee that 1 gets healed back up to full health each turn, and also resurrects 1 slain one as well. That resurrected Skorpekh can kind of make them get closer to being in combat. You set it back up when the Technomancer does his thing, hopefully nearer to the enemy, so it should make whatever charge they need to make shorter, both by 2 inches and the width of the Skorpekh destroyer's base. That's a really serious buff in terms of reliable charges. I think just overall, between the potential damage and durability ceilings that you can get, a unit of Skorpekh destroyers can be a seriously threatening sight on the table, and there's absolutely no reason that you couldn't have both an Overlord and a Technomancer supporting the 1 unit, though it might be a bit better to have 2 on the go, so you can buff the one that's most important each turn. So how would I think about using Skorpekh destroyers in game then? First up, I'd say that units somewhere between 3 and 6 all seem pretty usable. I think cheap units of 3 could be nice problem solvers, but do have the chance of getting whittled down to the extent where they're not that threatening very quickly. And often people like to avoid units of 6 just because it gives you coherency issues and more vulnerability to blasts. I feel like units of 5 might well be the sweet spot. I think they've got good battle line potential. You could definitely run more than 1 unit, though you might get very slightly diminishing returns after the first. After all, you can only use the Whirling Onslaught stratagem on 1 of them each turn, so it's likely that while you can keep 1 unit fairly safe, the other unit might be a bit more vulnerable. Otherwise, I think tactics for them will be fairly standard for 9th edition melee units. Hopefully deploy out of line of sight if you can, use their infantry keyword to move through ruins and things to get towards midfield objectives, and alongside any supporting characters that they might need to run along with, Technomancers or Overlords or whatever else you've brought along. Once they're exposed, I'd strongly consider Whirling Onslaught whenever they're taking hefty damage and it's important that they survive. Heal models up closer to the enemy if you get the chance, and strongly consider if you want to use any buffing stratagems or abilities when they do need to get stuck in. +1 strength could be really good for getting over those certain breakpoints, like say wounding toughness 5 on 3s for example. Overall, I think they're a really interesting unit for Necrons now. I'm certain that they'll be seeing a fair amount of play, but they still certainly have plenty of competitors within the Necron Codex. Perhaps Lichguard might be one of their main rivals. They don't hit anywhere near as hard as the Skorpeks, plus they're a fair amount slower as well, but I would say that they are a fair bit tougher point for point with those excellent dispersion shields. I think there's definitely arguments that you can make for both units. I would say that Skorpekh destroyers would outcompete their closest rivals, the Ophidian destroyers, at the moment. They're basically equipped very similarly, have some free deep strike and some extra anti-infantry attacks, but are a bit less strong and a bit less tough, and I can't see many people running them over Skorpechs. Wraiths kind of have similarities with Lichguard, again really quite tanky with their invuls, and they're quite fast too, but again not really the same amount of damage, particularly against things with good saves. And maybe Flayed Ones could be an interesting choice as well, again slower and far more anti-infantry damage related, rather than the more general purpose Skorpechs. Overall, I think there's definitely reasons to run the other units, but the Skorpekh destroyers compete really well. So let me know what you think of these terribly angry destroyers with the blades then. Have you had much use out of them since the rules have changed, and what's your favourite way to run them in game? If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, where I'll most certainly keep the regular 40k content coming, with new videos out just about every day. Hopefully we'll have plenty more for the Necrons. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the content on the channel, I would just like to briefly mention the channel's Patreon page again. It is what allows me to keep these videos coming quite so regularly, and if you are enjoying it all, then any support is enormously appreciated. The link's down in the video description below if you're interested, and I do try and give out rewards wherever possible, including seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some really big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, then the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.